I got to play about 3.5 hours of the Crew Motorfest, the upcoming racing game from Ubisoft that has a lot of people pretty excited, and I have mixed feelings. Just to be clear and transparent, they started us off at the very beginning of the game, giving us about 10 million in the in-game currency to spend on whatever vehicles and upgrades we wanted to really test what this game actually allows you to do. And after that, it was pretty open. We did a quick little tutorial sequence and then we were free to just do whatever for about 3.5 hours. I do want to say this is probably my favorite method for studios and publishers to show off their games before they launch, by just letting creators and influencers try the game without any strict guidelines on what quests you do or anything else. They did this back in the day with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or sorry, hold on.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
And that, I felt, gave us a pretty good idea of what that game had to offer ahead of time. And this time around, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what the Crew Motorfest has to offer as well. From what we saw, most of the gameplay is broken up into playlists that are themed around either different car sets, different environmental effects, or something tied to the very loose application of an in-game story with different characters that can interact and things like that. There is, of course, a multiplayer component, which is why it's called The Crew and not The Dude. However, for this demo, we were not able to experiment with any of that. We could see other players driving around, but we didn't actually get to see how the mechanics would work if you were racing together or against each other. We just kind of saw the after effects of people playing, but not actually participating in races with us. Graphically, I think the game also stands out and is pretty impressive. However, it's important to note that this playtest actually happened remote, so Ubisoft was running this game off of a computer they had, in my case, in Dallas, Texas, and then I'm in Colorado, so they streamed using basically a really fancy version of Parsec, so I could stream to my PC, play the game remote from there, and then they recorded this footage for me locally on that computer. All of this to say, I don't know what specs that computer has or had, so I have no idea if this is what you can expect to get on modern consoles or on a super high-end PC, or if this is really mid or low tier hardware. I have no idea. What I do know is that it took me a little while to get into the game's controls and the latency that was at play. There's a solid like 50 milliseconds, sometimes spiking up to like 100 millisecond delay between the inputs on my end and when it would go to the streaming PC off in Texas and then get all the way back to me. It was a little disorienting. Eventually got the hang of it, but it did take a little while to get used to. One of the things they also introduced was the ability to fly planes or drive boats, for example. It helps you navigate the island of Oʻahu, which is where this game is set. And while I think it's an interesting idea, I don't think it's implemented very well at all. The planes drive terribly. The boats are also clearly an afterthought, and this whole time while I was trying the boat and trying the planes, it just screamed to me like, if you're gonna do something, at least like do it a little decently. These were so frustrating to control. I just constantly had to ask myself, why am I even bothering? Like, the boats are so stupid and clunky to drive that I might as well just quickly swap to the plane and fly where I'm going, or just take a road with one of my souped up supercars and go that way. Like, the boats especially just don't make any sense being here. It's really weird. In terms of variability of gameplay, there's actually a good amount here. It's not just a straight race every single time. Sometimes they introduce little tasks like this, such as not damaging your vehicle, which in this case I failed miserably at, or other flying missions like this one where you're trying to go through these checkpoints and you have to go through at the right angle for maximum points. There's a good amount of stuff here, and it reminded me a lot actually of another Ubisoft game, Riders Republic, which launched 1.5 to 2 years ago to sort of mixed reactions, but it basically gave players a suite of different activities to participate within in this big multiplayer world. It was a really interesting concept, and I had a good amount of fun with it. And if I had to describe my time with the Crew Motorfest from this playtest, I would say that I had fun, but it was like the blind, stupid fun that you have with games that don't have a lot of meat on their bones. Like, I could see myself playing this for a handful of hours, but it's probably not a game that's going to fully replace something like Need for Speed or Forza Horizon or any of those games, which I think appeal to a more hardcore audience. And speaking of a hardcore audience, this game clearly is not a simulator, and it's not trying to be. It's giving you approachable controls in a wrapper that's pretty interesting to look at, and with a suite of different missions and race types that you can have fun with. It's not trying to do anything super hardcore, though I will say there is a lot of customization here. There's tons of different vehicles that have all types of different specialties or capabilities, whether you're looking for something with high traction or quick acceleration. There's a lot here. I will say that most of the playlists that I completed during my time with the game were specifically tied to, for example, a Porsche, or tied to old school like beach buses or sports cars from the 90s with the Tokyo themed playlist. And all of those vehicles were made available to you by way of basically renting them. So you didn't have to own them or have them in your inventory in the game. You still got to use them. So it never really felt as though, oh, I decked out my car and it's super cool now I'm gonna do better at races. It never really felt as though you could customize your car and see the benefit of it in one of these playlists, though again, there is a limited amount of stuff that we got to see in the final game. I'm sure that's going to be different, and there will be more races and playlists available for players to use their own vehicles. In terms of difficulty with AI, I think it does need a little bit of balancing. It seemed like on some difficulty levels with the AI, the racers just go faster. They just have better vehicles, which if you're using the rented vehicle, you simply can't keep up. There was one race where I was actually going up against an AI, and I tried raising the AI difficulty, and it was simply a stretch of straight road for the first like third of the race. And I was very surprised when the AI just rubber banded way past me, and it didn't really feel fair. It didn't feel like their car was doing anything that much different than mine. It's just that they were given higher speed arbitrarily, and I was screwed because I chose a higher difficulty. Now, to be fair, I haven't dug into like the balancing code or the spreadsheets with all the stats on how they calculate speed multipliers and things like that on higher difficulties. Though I will say my assumption is that if I'm raising the AI difficulty, it's just improving the driver behind the seat. I wouldn't expect that to also improve the vehicle that they're driving, you know? So it just didn't feel like there was much reason to crank the difficulty past the midpoint, basically, because after that, there's just no way to reasonably win, at least in the form that the game is taking right now. Again, maybe they'll balance it once we get closer to launch, but we'll just have to wait and see. As of right now, the AI balancing feels pretty off. As for the map itself, I do think that there are a lot of really pretty sights to be seen. It's clear that they did their homework on Oʻahu and how beautiful it can look, certainly. However, the world itself doesn't feel anywhere near as grand or expansive as in past Crew games, and that's intentional. They aren't trying to do anything as huge as those games did. Rather, they're trying to sell this game on a more narrow focused and a tighter focused game offering than just giving you the continental United States to explore. As for whether or not that's going to be successful, I think only time will tell. But what I will say is that it didn't feel as interesting to just drive and explore as I was expecting it to. Again, maybe it was just the fact that I was playing with limited time, so I was subconsciously trying to quickly work through stuff or get to objectives faster, but I really never felt the need to go and carefully navigate to and from each objective or to the next race in my car. I often felt as though I was just better served by clicking down on the right joystick, pulling up a wheel, and then selecting the plane, taking off and flying to where I needed to go. Again, maybe that'll change in the future once we get the final release and you're just able to explore freely, and then also when you're not streaming the game from another PC hundreds of miles away with the added latency that brings. But all told, I had a good amount of fun while playing. I wasn't expecting too crazy much, but what we did get was a relatively good time in an easy to approach wrapper. And I think that's exactly what the Crew Motorfest is trying to do. It's trying to be an approachable racing game for people that want to just have fun driving fancy cars in a beautiful island, but are not looking for a super hardcore simulator like you can find in other titles. Regardless, this is going to be one to keep an eye on, and when it officially launches in early September, I'm going to be checking it out again, and I want you to tell me if you are going to be checking it out yourself in the comment section below. Also, hit the subscribe button right now. Like 60% of you guys that watch these videos are not subscribed. That's outrageous. That's silly. Let's fix it. Or don't. It's not like I can tell if you do or don't. I'm just glad you watched the video. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks for chilling. Thanks for making my dreams a reality. I love you all more than you could possibly know. And until next time, stay safe. I love you. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.